So, using this conversational approach, let's talk about an actual strategy for reading through a poem. Step one is to look the poem over. Is there anything you notice? Do you notice anything about the structure, how it's organized? Like, are there lots of little stanzas or larger stanzas? Are they long lines, short lines? Does the pattern change at any point? Just visually, what does it look like? You could also take a peek at the title. What's it called? What do you think this is maybe going to be about? Using this poem as an example, we'll read through it in a second here, but just visually from the start, what do you notice? Um, I see that it's one long stanza. I mean, it's not the longest poem. I could say it's actually pretty short. But there's no breaks at any point. It's not like it's 3 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines. It's one complete stanza made up of shorter lines. They all seem to have, like, I don't know, 5 on average words or so. Some are shorter. But it's a pretty short, pretty tight poem in one complete stanza. Looking at the title, it's called Spring Storm. That seems pretty straightforward. It's not, I don't know, I'm not totally lost yet. Storms happen in the spring. That's something I'm aware of. And I think I'm ready to start the conversation with this poem. To do that, I'm going to read it aloud. I'd suggest reading it aloud slowly the first time. Maybe you want to read it aloud a little bit more quickly the second time. But in either case, really listen to your voice. Is there anything you notice? Are there any patterns, any structures? Um, and even do you like catch over anything? Is there anything that kind of stops you or trips you up a little bit? Does it change anywhere? But I'm going to read this poem again, Spring Storm, aloud for the first time here. So, Spring Storm. The sky has given over its bitterness. Out of the dark change all day long, rain falls and falls as if it would never end. Still, the snow keeps its hold on the ground, but water from 1,000 runnels. It collects swiftly, dappled with black cuts away for itself through green ice in the gutters. Drop after drop it falls from the withered grass stems of the overhanging embankment. So my first time through, you notice I stumbled in a couple places, especially that if it as if it would little short sentence there kind of threw me off. But as I was reading through, I noticed a couple things. I noticed right around the exclamation mark there, the poem seemed to pick up a little bit more energy. I don't know if it's just the exclamation mark, maybe say it aloud a little bit louder or something. And I also noticed like there's a bit of a longer sentence. I kind of stumbled over it too, but it collects swiftly, dappled with black cuts away for itself. It's a longer sentence compared to the ones that came before it. And that kind of, I think, threw me off a little bit too. But reading it aloud, I'm noticing things. I'm noticing punctuation. I'm noticing some sentence length. And I've kind of worked through it once. And as I'm doing that, you might have noticed I was trying to read without the line breaks. I was trying to ignore where it would stop, and I was just trying to read with the punctuation, like start a sentence at a capital, end it at a period, pause at commas, just read it as if it was prose, as if it was a paragraph or a sentence in a paragraph. That first time through, I was trying, just ignore the line breaks. You might want to, though, read with the line breaks. We could try it again here, and we'll read with the line breaks to see what else we notice. So to come back to it, just to give an example of what I'm talking about here, the first sentence again, it says, "The sky has given over its bitterness." So that first time through, the sky has given over its bitterness. When I just read it capital to period, it reads like a sentence. And if I read the second one, out of the dark change all day long, rain falls and falls as if it would never end. Again, that can read like a sentence. Let's try, though. Let's look at this sentence here. So I'm going to try reading without the line breaks, and then we're going to try breaking it up. So it says, it collects swiftly, dappled with black, cuts away for itself through green ice in the gutters. Now, as I read through there, I tried to pause at the comma. Maybe there's a couple other natural ones where clauses would start or end. But to me, that sounds like, so it's talking about the water, and the water collects swiftly, dappled with black cuts away for itself. And when I read it through that way, honestly, it feels like the image I'm getting is like water cutting black trenches through, green ice. Maybe it's like the grass is still under the ice or something. But there's these black trenches being formed by the water. But if I read it with the line break, I'm going to read it again, just a little bit of it here, and I'm going to pause at the end of each line. It collects swiftly, dappled with black. When I read it that way, and I even pause at that line break, to me, this way it sounds like the water is collecting, and in that water, the water is like has little black flecks in it. The water is dappled with black. And by pausing at that line break, I'm not really thinking about the cut, the word on the next line. To me, it's saying there's like little black flecks of soil or something in the water. Whereas, again, if I read the whole thing to what it's connected to in the next line, it starts to mean a different thing. So if we're reading sometimes with punctuation, sometimes without punctuation, we can kind of work through different meanings. And that's part of what line breaks do. They make us pause and think something, or to cut an idea in half and continue it on the next line. Um, and at this point, as I've read through it, I've tried with line breaks, I've tried without, read it quickly, read it slowly. This is my chance to start getting a little bit more involved in the conversation. What do I notice? Is there anything I've recognized yet? And really, do I have any questions? So as you're reading through at this point, this is where we're getting more curious. Do you have questions about what's happening here? And this is where you can also start, making some guesses, some assumptions, some suggestions to participate in the conversation. To say, well, okay, so William Carlos Williams has said this, has communicated this poem. What do I think about that? Like when I look at it, what do I think about the title? Like I think this title, Spring Storm, is fairly literal. I think this is a poem. I think that the title is fairly literal. I think that this poem and this poem's speaker is talking about a spring storm. I think it was written either during a storm, or maybe William Carlos Williams was just thinking about a storm. In either case, I think the situation presented is a storm. This is about a spring storm. It's maybe meant for readers who, I don't know, who are nature lovers or poetry lovers, but, someone who's watched ice melt in the spring. There's lots of things like there's an unlimited list of things we could say or think. I'll put this list down below. But this is our chance to kind of start making assumptions and suggestions, like what images create, why were these words chose? Culturally, what do you think this person's background is, and how does that maybe relate to the poem? Does it come out of a specific historical time period? What is the language doing? Is it giving us a question? Is it giving us an answer? It's our chance to kind of start suggesting what we see. Overall, like I said, to me, a lot of this is this literal description of ice breaking up and melting and running down grass in the spring. There's probably deeper meanings, other things we can say about it, but at this point, that's where I'm at with the poem. That's where I'm at in this conversation. In the next couple of lessons, we'll start to maybe take that a step further.